Okay, all right. Okay, look at me.
Look at me.
Look at me.
One Punch Man right now is getting really, really weird on a lot of different fronts here. The actual substance within the manga material of 164, the latest chapter, was very interesting. And the scope of the story had expanded in a very intriguing way. And we were going in a pretty good direction. And we may still go in that direction. But right now, we have to actually retract some of that because there was a redraw. There was a redraw for 164 of One Punch Man. And the things that kind of expanded the scope of the story actually got omitted. But in another way, we also expand the story even still because what's going on with Garo right now in the redraw. So there are things to honestly go over in another video. So for this video, I'm going to talk about the stuff pertaining to Blast and his clique and also the full continent that we see in the original version of 164 of the chapter, because these things could actually still be genuinely the case. That's the whole key thing here. They're omitted because of the redraw, so they technically no longer exist, at least in the short term. Because right now, we replace these things for the big G-O-D. And the table scene that was so damn good, on top of what I think was some pretty good character stuff for Garo, leading up to the table scene that is now kind of out the window, at least in the short term. And this new form of Garo, I talked about it in a video about God and how God scales.
Not yet.
Right now, enjoy the precursor because these things could still apply for the overall One Punch Man series.
Yeah. It's rewind.
Keep my wife's name out your
Garo, very impressive here. I would argue that Garo probably has the second best or the actual best monster attack feat right now in the series. So Garo attacks Saitama with a move called the Extreme Power Attack. A very simple, very lackluster name, but the effects are very, 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 very far from. Because when he hits Saitama and he destroys this big mountain, the shockwaves actually permeate through the entirety of the planet, and on the opposite side of the world, what Garo does is insane. Land masses start to raise from the depths of the ocean on the opposite side of the world. And then Blast, who is in between, I'm guessing he's in between dimensions or in some pocket dimension. He's in some swirly space, almost as if like you would have constant vertigo. It's a very uncomfortable place, honest to God. But that being said, Blast, he feels that, and he can feel that the magnetic gravitational fields around the Earth are distorted in some crazy way. And then he opens the window from his weird vertigo swirly space, and then boom, we see the planet Earth, and on the opposite side of the world, a continent is raising from the depths of the ocean. Now, we normally don't see this part of the One Punch Man world. We were talking about this actually during the stream for this chapter reaction, which you can actually view on my Cold Requiem channel, link in the box below, but particularly on my Twitch channel, where I do have my tier 3 discussion after the chapter is over. And we were talking about essentially how the One Punch Man world is structured, where when it comes to global events, we normally just see the giant Pangea-like continent of the One Punch Man world. There are some bigger islands around this Pangea-like continent, but for the most part, again, we never really see the opposite side of the world. There are some times when we do see more of the planet than usual. So for example, during Lord Boris's final attack, and then Saitama's serious punch to counter that attack. Or let's say when Psychos did her crazy psychic wave, and then she cut off a piece of the planet, and the ocean was uplifted away from the main planet for a few seconds. So there are some times where we do see a little bit more of the opposite side of the planet, but we still don't see the full face of it. Some parts of this may have already existed, but we never saw. So everything that we see in this panel that is outlined in the dark gray should be the newly formed land coming out of the ocean, where the ocean water is black, and then the new land is white, and the darker gray is the seawater running off of this newly created land. So this is, as far as I understand, the ancient continent that was referenced to when Atomic Samurai first holds the Sun Blade, where it's stated in this chapter, and I quote, "The secret blade made on an ancient continent which sank into the ocean, said to have been passed down for generations within the Council of Swordsmen." So this is probably the ancient continent that this sword was made in, and now that the continent has arisen, there is also a chance here that the polar opposite sword, the Sun Blade, the Moon Blade, in the future can be found on this continent. What's also very interesting too is the idea that the deep sea folk may also come from this place as well. Because even though this continent is being viewed close to, let's say, I think it's V City on the main giant Pangea continent, the continent also should be big enough to where the opposite side of the Pangea continent, so where J City is, that side should also be relatively close to this ancient continent. And that is where the deep sea folk, the sea folk, first attacked. So again, for me, Garo, insanely impressive, literally changing the actual tectonic structure of the world of One Punch Man. What happens here is going to be quite interesting, because as this new continent raises, then the natural sea levels should also rise in other various cities across the main Pangea continent. So various, quote, cities, city-states, city countries, because they're actually really, really big, but various city countries should get smaller as a result. That's what I'm thinking here. But at the same time, maybe enough water was actually ripped out from the atmosphere because of Psychos, where she did cut off a large portion of the planet, and the force of the attack plus that part of the crust coming back down onto the planet, that could have forced a lot of ocean water to be jettisoned into space. Or let's say when Saitama did his serious punch on the evil natural water, some ocean water as a result may have also gone to space as well. So maybe it doesn't matter. There's a good chance that doesn't matter. But Garo's actions have major implications for the world of One Punch Man moving forward. And the person that lets us know all these details is what in all... Okay, so here comes the second crazy part here. Blast and his clique, the Ginyu Force Guardians of the Galaxy, they can see and feel what's going on. And we have the faces and more detailed silhouettes of the characters, 3 in particular. One is a girl that I think we actually see in chapter 156, when we have the silhouettes of the Ginyu Force Guardians of the Galaxy. She could be floating, because there's an idea here that she's actually a psychic, because she does look like an elf version of Fubuki. And she is looking into some sort of water bowl. You can argue some sort of water divination, which would imply that she does have some unique, potentially psychic-like abilities in order to tell what is going on with the planet. And when you think about it, when you look at her face and other parts of her body, yeah, I can actually understand the argument here, where she does look like an elfish version of Fubuki. Like Fubuki is role-playing and LARPing Lord of the Rings stuff, and her henchmen are all from the Shire. Then we have a person respond to her, "Oh, who could have done that?" We have seen this design before. Yes! We have seen this look before. The earrings, the armor around the neck, the one eye and the spiky downwards hair. The shoulder pads aren't as spiky, but this man looks like Boros. He looks full on like Boros. And a lot of folks are dubbing him Boris. It's a good name. And then finally, on this page, at the bottom, we have who I thought in the silhouettes looked like Yojiro Hanma, but in reality is more like Battle Beast from Invincible. And he says, "I can't imagine that any Earthlings could have managed such a thing. It's probably just an anomalous tectonic shift. Either way." And then they charge in with Blast to take care of the seal, the dimensional seal that is allegedly holding God. right now. So Mirana and One are giving us more details, more insight about the Ginyu Force Guardians of the Galaxy and God. And these things are going to be pretty important, especially, at least I would think, for the end game of the series. So first of all, Blast's crew. What are some options here? Option number one is that these are aliens from other parts of the universe. So this person looks like Fubuki, but is just an alien from another part of the universe. Boros, we know for a fact, came from another part of the universe, and Boris could easily be another member of that same species. Just how, let's say, Boros was Frieza, well, Boris is cooler. It could be that simple, easy peasy. And then Battle Beast is actually Battle Beast. He is running around with Blast to find worthy challengers. That's his MO. Genuinely so. The Viltrumites ain't gonna cut it. So in the future, he could be very intrigued with our dorky, very alopecia MC. That's option one. But given Blast's powers, option two might be more likely. Blast has the power to move through dimensions. That is his main MO. Rather than these people being different aliens, even though the Battle Beast guy says Earthlings couldn't have managed such a thing, which would imply that he's not from planet Earth, he could actually be another Earth version of the Beast King that Saitama defeated way back when. And Boris isn't actually Boris, but Boros, but from an alternate dimension. And the elf Fubuki could actually be Fubuki, but from another dimension. That is a very intriguing thought here. Instead of an MCU multiversal war, this is a One Punch Man dimensional war. And God seems to be the main nemesis. This idea is interesting, and it does, I think, go hand in hand more with Blast's powers and abilities rather than, let's say, rolling through the cosmos and getting assistance from other aliens. However, two of these people make extraterrestrial claims of some kind. Boris is absolutely extraterrestrial, and Battle Beast says the word Earthlings in this translation would also insinuate extraterrestrial. So honestly, it could be both. It could be where these guys are aliens from an alternate dimension. There are options here. There are clear options here. And then finally, but briefly, the idea that there is a dimensional seal that allegedly the big God is sealed in. But how does that work exactly? Because we know that the big God is still operating in some capacity, at least on planet Earth. And I've theorized Boros arrived to this planet because of the prophecy from this Cthulhu fortune teller that probably, I think, talked to the big God. So where and how does the seal work exactly? Is it, let's say, they were actually able to seal the big God in some pocket space, and that's where you see it huddled in fetal position? Or is it more like the seal is around these dimensions and this universe, allegedly, and then God is trying to break through the seal that protects this world and these universes and dimensions from it? Let me in. Let me in. So, do you see now how interesting this gets from an astronomical perspective? There are so many possibilities and so many options here. And right now, Blast and his squad are moving forward through the black hole to repair the dimensional seal. So after this arc, I guess some downtime before we get any more crazy God stuff. I'm not too sure, because maybe in the comic, they're there already. But at this point in time, I have no idea. But I am very intrigued because the scope of the series is... Neil deGrasse Tyson would be very, very interested in One Punch Man right now.
Not the Big Bang. Everybody wants to see that.